Donald Trump is a fascist. Okay, you've heard me say it a million times, but perhaps you're wondering, but Chris, why do you believe Donald Trump is a fascist? Well, allow me to tell you. You see, I studied fascism. I wrote my college thesis on the rise of fascism in between World War I and World War II in Germany. And, I studied history, political science, and the one thing that I can say is very important in order to understand these things is to trust the experts, right? And I'm not saying me as the expert, whatever you want to fucking believe. I'm saying the people who have actually studied this stuff relentlessly over decades, right? Now, what I always turn to when I want to talk about why I believe Donald Trump is a fascist, I go to Dr. Lawrence Britt. Okay, he's got an op-ed that he wrote in 2003 called Fascism, Anyone? And it's a great one. Now, here's the thing. The reason why I like to use it is because it was written in 2003. So if you show somebody who's a Trump supporter, they can't say, like, oh, this guy's probably biased, anti-Trump. It was written in 2003. And it's based on a compilation of studies of, Pol Pot and Mussolini and Hitler and every fascist regime that you could, even Franco, right? Francisco Franco. So I want to just go through these 14 key characteristics of fascism with you, right? And you can decide yourself how many he meets. And I want you to drop down below in the comments like 1 out of 14 or 2 out of 14, whatever Trump meets in your checkbook, okay? And I'll tell you what I believe, because by the end of this, hopefully you're all going to agree with me and you're going to believe that he checks off all 14 characteristics of fascism. But without further ado, I'm Chris Valenti. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And let's just dive right into this, okay? Here we go. So, this is you can look this up, op-ed, Fascism, Anyone, Dr. Lawrence Britt, spring of 2003. Okay, we're going to move straight into the different characteristics. Number 1. Powerful and continuing expressions of nationalism, from the prominent displays of flags and bunting to the ubiquitous lapel pins. The fervor to show patriotic nationalism, both on the part of the regime itself and of citizens caught up in its frenzy, was always obvious. Catchy slogans, pride in the military, and demands for unity were common themes in expressing this nationalism. It was usually coupled with a suspicion of things foreign that often bordered on xenophobia. Now, the reason why he keeps on saying like often and stuff like that is because this is the 14 characteristics that he found among every single fascist regime. These are the unifying characteristics that you can find in all of them, okay? So I think that's easy. One, yeah, check. I mean, MAGA, Make America Great Again, the American flags everywhere. It's all about continuing expressions of nationalism, and especially this part at the very end, a suspicion of things foreign, right? We already, do I even have to talk about it when it comes to the undocumented immigrants and the Muslims and anything like that? So, 1 out of 14 for me. Number 2. Disdain for the importance of human rights. The regimes themselves viewed human rights as of little value and a hindrance to realizing the objectives of the ruling elite. Think about it. No due process for undocumented immigrants. Think about it. Through clever use of propaganda, the population was brought to accept these human rights abuses by marginalizing, even demonizing those being targeted. Alligator Alcatraz. When abuse was egregious, the tactic was to use secrecy, denial, and disinformation. Listen, easy 2 out of 14 there. I mean, we see Trump says he wants to send U.S. citizens to El Salvador. Trump is building Alligator Alcatraz. They're black bagging people with no identification. They're violating their rights in the prison cells. Women are having miscarriages. Men are dying. Meets that. Number 3. Identification of enemies/scapegoats as a unifying cause. The most significant common thread among these regimes was the use of scapegoating as a means to divert the people's attention from other problems, to shift blame for failures, and to channel frustration in controlled directions. The methods of choice, relentless propaganda and disinformation, were usually effective. Often, the regimes would incite spontaneous acts against their target scapegoats, usually communists, socialists, liberals, Jews, ethnic, and racial minorities. Traditional national enemies, members of other religions, secularists, homosexuals, and terrorists. Active opponents of these regimes were inevitably labeled as terrorists and dealt with accordingly. The supremacy of the avid militarism, ruling elites always identified closely with the military and the industrial infrastructure that supported it. A disproportionate share of national resources was allocated to the military, even when domestic needs were acute. The military was seen as an expression of nationalism and was used whenever possible to assert national goals, intimidate other nations, and increase the power and prestige of the ruling elite. This one goes without being said. He checks off. The scapegoats are the undocumented immigrants. They're the liberals. They're the socialists. They're the radical Marxist-Leninists. They're all the things that he says, right? A disproportionate share of the national resources to the military, even when domestic needs are acute. We're going through an unaffordability crisis, and meanwhile, we're increasing the military budget, $150 billion for ICE. Think about it. He meets this. Number 3, he meets perfectly. And 4. This is a combination of 3 and 4. He meets them both. Oh, so number 4 is the supremacy of the military. Yes, he meets that. Number 3 and 4. So we're at 4 out of 14. Number 5, rampant sexism. Beyond the simple fact that the political elite and the national culture were male-dominated, these regimes inevitably viewed women as second-class citizens. They were adamantly anti-abortion and also homophobic. These attitudes were usually codified in draconian laws that enjoyed strong support by the orthodox religion of the country, thus lending the regime to cover for its abuses. We already see this with the anti-abortion laws across the country. We already see this all over the fucking place, especially with, like, anti-LGBTQ laws. That's the same thing when it comes to sexism. 5 out of 14. Number 6, a controlled mass media. Under some of the regimes, the mass media were under strict direct control and could be relied upon never to stray from the party line. Other regimes exercised more subtle power to ensure media orthodoxy. Methods included the control of licensing and access to resources, economic pressure, appeals to patriotism, and implied threats. The leaders of the mass media were often politically compatible with the powerful elite. The result was usually success in keeping the general public unaware of the regime's excesses. So he meets this one to a fucking T. You know he meets this one to a T. He just got $16 million from Paramount trying to sue them for editing an ABC interview. Number 7, obsession with national security. Inevitably, a national security apparatus was under direct control of the ruling elite. It was usually an instrument of oppression operating in secret and beyond any constraints. Its actions were justified under the rubric of protecting, quote, national security, and questioning its activities was portrayed as unpatriotic or even treasonous. This is exactly what's going on with ICE. These people are obsessed with national security. They don't give a fuck about the due process for anybody in this nation. They are fine with violating these people's rights. And if you question it, they're saying that you're unpatriotic and you're an enemy of the state. Number 7, he meets that. We're already halfway. He meets 7 of them. Number 8, religion and ruling elite tied together. Unlike communist regimes, the fascist and proto-fascist regimes were never proclaimed as godless by their opponents. In fact, most of the regimes attached themselves to the predominant religion of the country and chose to portray themselves as militant defenders of that religion. The fact that the ruling elite's behavior was incompatible with the precepts of the religion was generally swept under the rug. As we know, the MAGA people, they all claim to be Christians, but like Donald Trump and everything about his movement is antithetical to Jesus Christ and his message. Propaganda kept up the illusion that the ruling elites were defenders of the faith and the opponents were the godless. A perception was manufactured that opposing the power elite was tantamount to an attack on religion. And we already see this with the Department of Faith and Paula White. Like, Trump is intertwining himself with, like, all these extremely evangelical Christian beliefs. He already says he was chosen by God. So 8, he meets. 8 out of 14. 9. Power of corporations protected. Although the personal life of ordinary citizens was under strict control, the ability of large corporations to operate in relative freedom was not compromised. The ruling elite saw the corporate structure as a way to not only ensure military production in developed states, but also as an additional means of social control. Members of the economic elite were often pampered by the political elite to ensure a continued mutuality of interests, especially in the repression of have-not citizens. We see this with giant organizations like Geo Group, the private prison industry. We see it with Elon Musk. We see it with Mark Zuckerberg, Sundar Pichai. Like, we're talking about OpenAI, Palantir, Meta, Apple, Google, Amazon. All of these companies, they are best friends with Donald Trump. So he doesn't give a fuck about any, as long as you're wealthy, he's on board for that. So 9 out of 14 met. Number 10. Power of labor suppressed or eliminated. Since organized labor was seen as one power center that could challenge the political hegemony of the ruling elite and its corporate allies, it was inevitably crushed or made powerless. The poor formed an underclass viewed with suspicion or outright contempt. Under some regimes, being poor was considered akin to a vice. So we're approaching this one. I would say that Trump doesn't meet this one yet because we still have unions, but Donald Trump is by far the most anti-union president that we've ever had, and he's trying to destroy the middle class. So I will not call him on this one yet. So far, still at a 9 out of 14. Disdain and suppression of intellectuals and the arts. Intellectuals and the inherent freedom of ideas or expression associated with them were anathema to these regimes. Intellectual and academic freedom were considered subversive to national security and the patriotic ideal. We see this with Trump attacking Columbia University and Harvard University and saying that they are harboring terrorist defenders because they are doing a pro-Palestine rally. Trump is already targeting the education centers. Universities were tightly controlled, politically unreliable faculty harassed or eliminated, unorthodox ideas or expressions of dissent were strongly attacked, silenced or crushed. To these regimes, art and literature to serve in the national interest or they had no right to exist. We see this too with Trump attacking defunding the Department of Education, right? And forcing people in Oklahoma to read the Bible in the school. They are trying to create a new generation of very, very loyal fascists. So he meets that. So now we're at 10 out of 14. Number 12, obsession with crime and punishment. Most of the regimes maintained draconian systems of criminal justice and huge prison populations. The police were often glorified and had almost unchecked power, leading to the rampant abuse. Normal and political crime were often merged into trumped-up criminal charges and sometimes used against political opponents of the regime. Fear and hatred of criminals or traitors was often promoted among the population as an excuse for more police power. We just saw this with Trump deploying the National Guard and the Marines to Los Angeles and the Marines to Florida. People are okay. They're sacrificing their own rights in order to feel safe, right? And we're already seeing an obsession with crime and punishment when it comes to Alligator Alcatraz. That is a weird thing for people to be obsessed with. Number 13. Rampant cronyism and corruption. Those in business circles and close to the power elite often use their position to enrich themselves. This corruption worked in both ways. The power elite would receive financial gifts and property from the economic elite, who would in turn gain from the benefit of government favoritism. Members of the power elite were in a position to obtain vast wealth from other resources as well. For example, by stealing national resources. With the national security apparatus under control and the media muzzled, this corruption was largely unconstrained and not well understood by the general population. This is what we're seeing with the elite in our nation, the billionaires, right after this big, beautiful bill was signed. They're all getting massive tax cuts. So he meets that, 13 out of 14, and let's see the last one. Fraudulent elections. Elections in the form of plebiscites or public opinion polls were usually bogus. When actual elections with candidates were held, they would usually be perverted by the power elite to get the desired result. Common methods included maintaining control of the election machinery, Elon, intimidating or disenfranchising opposition voters, Zoran, destroying or disallowing legal votes, and as a last resort, turning to judiciary beholden to the power elite. So this we're also seeing with claims about like Rockland County and like Elon Musk and the, Kamala 9 million missing votes. But on top of that, I think the more important thing is Trump threatening to arrest Zoran Mamdani for winning the New York mayoral primary race. So end of the day, 13 out of 14 for me. Trump has 13 of 14 key characteristics of fascism. That's more than enough. In my eyes, if you meet 7, you're a fucking fascist. And I think he meets 13 and he's on his way to meeting 14 of them. But anyway, drop a comment down below. Let me know what he met in your eyes. X out of 14, you let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It costs you nothing, and it helps me immensely. And remember, this is real independent media. I got no funding. So if you do want to help me out financially, you can become a member. You can become a patron. You can donate to the channel with that thanks button. You can buy merch, and you could use the discount code for Ground News in the description below. Do me one last favor. Click that video right over there. I promise you it's a banger. And I know bangers.